Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will not be joining us this evening, but the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. We are rejoined by special guest, staff writer for the Washington Commanders, Mr. Zach Selby. How are you doing on this beautiful Monday afternoon, sir?
Well, it's not that beautiful right now. It's a little shady out from what I can see from my window. Also, what's up with the sunglasses, man? Where is this coming from?
I'm on vacation, Selby, so I'm you know the whole term "when in Rome." That's what I'm doing.
Okay, all right. I like that. I like that energy. I like that a lot. Also,
I'm jealous.
Where's Reed at? What is this?
So what he told us is that when he was on break today at work at lunch, that his brakes almost went out and he almost crashed, is what he's saying. So he has to go get his brakes checked, which we can all get excused absences here and there, Sully. But you're not one of those guys. You don't need those absences. But speaking of, my first question to you is regarding to the Washington Commanders and a couple important positions. Who has more to prove this season? Chase Young, Sam Howell, or Eric Bieniemy?
That's a really good question. Good job on that. I think Eric Bieniemy is out of the conversation, right? Okay. Because I think we know, like, even though Eric Bieniemy didn't call plays in Kansas City, I mean, I think he's already kind of proven the kind of coach that he's going to be, right? He's going to be in your face. He's going to have a high demand. He's going to have a good high standard. And if he doesn't like the way you're playing, he's going to get you off the field and somebody else is going to take your place. Like, I think he's basically shown us exactly what we're going to see out of him. And it comes down to Chase Young or Sam Howell. I think I'm gonna have to go with Chase. I think there is more to prove for Chase's regard, because if you think about it, even though we know what Chase athletically can be when he's healthy, we haven't seen his production in a couple of years, and that's not all fault of his own, right? I mean, he did miss almost all of last year to recover from the injury he had 2 years ago in week 10, where he missed almost half the season. So I don't think it's not really necessarily his fault why he hasn't been able to produce. Because I mean, when you're on the sideline, you can't really produce. But I do think it would be nice to see him go back to say, oh yeah, I'm still that dude. I'm still that Chase Young from 2020. You know, the guy who can influence games beyond just rushing the passer, who can just wreak havoc in the backfield, who can do all this other different kind of stuff. We want to see that different kind of Chase Young again. And so far, I mean, granted, like, it was June and there wasn't a whole lot to see, but what we did see, it looked like he was closer to his older self than he has been in quite a while. So that's what I'm most excited about, to see what Chase Young can do when he's fully healthy, because when he is healthy on the field, he can be a scary guy, like that, like a dog, flat out.
Yeah, totally agree. I think majority of us, because as we know, Twitter, there's always the angry mob of Twitter, but majority of us want to see Chase get back to that 2020 Chase and just become the dominant player he was then. And that's definitely an intriguing storyline coming up in training camp, which is about a little bit over a month away at this point. What is another intriguing storyline that you are looking forward to coming in training camp?
I mean, I think we have to go with Sam Howell, right? I mean, because even though he's been QB1, he's still not named the starting quarterback for week 1. And I mean, I think you have to look at this offense and say, okay, you have good talent at running back. You have great talent at receiver. The offensive line is a little bit of a question, but the tight ends, they look primed to be pretty freaking good. Like with Logan Thomas out there, Cole Turner out there. So all the pieces are in place, except for, the big question is quarterback. What is Sam Howell going to look like? I mean, maybe even Jacoby Brissett, does he end up taking that job? I personally think that Sam Howell's going to get every single opportunity to be the starting quarterback because of what he showed in OTAs. And, I saw more good than bad out of Sam Howell. And there's never something that made me question whether or not he could actually be the starting quarterback for the 2023 season. I mean, he had some really great accuracy. He's not afraid to throw into traffic. He puts it on people. Like, Curtis Samuel was saying, he's throwing dots out there. And if you look at some of the throws he's playing, like he's putting out there, like, yeah, it looks about as accurate as you can be. And he's not afraid to give players chances downfield. That's something that really is what I think has been missed by some quarterbacks. And that's not just saying one. I think it's a lot of different quarterbacks. You didn't see as much verticality out of this offense as maybe you would like, even though, Scott's offense they did a lot of throwing deep downfield, just never really connected. And I think Sam has the accuracy to be able to do that, because this offense is going to be more shorter to intermediate passes. It's going to be more of a West Coast system. But there are going to be some moments where you're gonna see Terry deep on the sideline, and Sam's gonna give him a shot. And I think that's one of his biggest traits. Now, of course, even then, there are going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some errors, because he is a second-year player with almost no experience out there. I mean, other than one game. And before that, it was mostly just him being a backup on the roster. So even though we have a bigger sample size, it's nowhere near what we hope we're going to see in week one. So if everything works out and Sam is, I would say, not even like a good quarterback, just an average quarterback to start out, you feel pretty good about this offense. But again, it's an if, especially not just because of, how much we don't know about Sam Howell, but also because how many times have we had to deal with the quarterback situation of the last few years? It's been a lot. It's been a whole lot. So that's a big if, but it can work out if it works, if everything hits the way it should.
Absolutely. And Coach Rivera saying that Sam Howell has earned the starting label heading into training camp obviously means a lot to Sam Howell, and he has earned it to this point, Zach. But I have another one of those hypotheticals. Who has more receptions this season between Cole Turner, Antonio Gibson, or Dyami Brown?
Ooh, man. So I think the Dyami Brown angle is interesting, because obviously, in case y'all didn't know, over the past couple of years or haven't been told, Dyami Brown and Sam Howell played together in North Carolina. Breaking news. So I think that's an interesting angle, but I think I'm going to remove him from this for this reason, is that he's going to be the wide receiver 4 in this scenario. You're going to have Terry, you're going to have John, you're going to have Curtis, all pretty much getting passes ahead of him. And that's not to say that he can't be an impact player for this offense. It's just going to be hard when you have those 3 guys out there catching passes. So it comes down to Antonio Gibson or Cole Turner. I think I got to go with Antonio Gibson, because I think this screen game is going to be pretty big in this offense. And the screen game was kind of frustrating for the Commanders last year, because there really wasn't one for a lot of different reasons. And I think you see what Antonio Gibson can do in the screen game, right? I mean, 2 years ago, 2021 against Buffalo, takes it 73 yards to the house call, like burning people. And you see that a little bit in what we saw in OTAs and minicamp.
Okay.
And I think, Bieniemy's going to try to get, this guy the ball out in space. He's going to create some mismatches. He's going to create some opportunities, and using AG's like background as a receiver is going to be tremendously helpful. Once he gets in open space, he's able to maneuver around those offensive linemen, blow past those linebackers, and he's big enough to kind of truck safeties and corners if he needs to. I think he's going to be a pretty big piece, and it seems like they really want him to be as well. Now, I mean, that's not saying anything against Cole Turner, because I think Cole Turner had a great OTA period and minicamp. I think if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be a pretty big part of this offense too, with a background at receiver. But I look at Antonio Gibson, and I think this is a guy who has 4.3 speed, is big, is athletic, has a quick twitch to him. He could really, open some plays up for this offense.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely hoping that AG gets unlocked. Kind of, like you said, resembles the 2021 where he took the screen to the house, or even 2020, his rookie year, where I think he had a total of like 10 touchdowns, but he was taking runs against, I remember the Cowboys game. He scored, 3 touchdowns that game? So he can definitely be that weapon for this offense, just about getting them the mismatches. But Speaking of a guy that stood out in training camp and like OTAs, like Cole Turner, like you talked about, who's someone that was also like a standout that didn't really get a lot of talked about or like a lot of shine from like the people tweeting out like, hey, this guy made this type of play or this guy looks good. Who's someone that you saw out there that you think is going to be maybe a factor coming into training camp?
I'll go with Khalid Hudson. I think Khalid has made some pretty big strides. And with Jamin kind of missing, basically all the team portions of OTAs just because he's dealing with that cleanup surgery, on his knee. That gave Khalid Hudson more opportunities, and it seems like the Commanders really believe that it clicked with something has clicked with him. Because if you remember, like I think prior to this season, like we had no idea what Khalid Hudson's career was going to be. He was on the practice squad. Like you kind of had to wonder, like he was a draft pick. How long is it really going to last here? Is he going to last much longer than the league period? But he has that start against the Cowboys. Has 7 tackles, and he's using his athletic ability like he did in Michigan at that. That I think it's the Viper position. In Michigan, where you're able to do a lot of stuff from safety, from outside linebacker. You're sort of, I guess you could probably compare it to the Buffalo nickel position for the Commanders, but maybe it's a little bit different. But he does have like that versatility. He does have the ability to cover some people. He does have, he's not afraid to get in there and make some tackles. Not necessarily the hitter, but a pretty solid tackler. I think that he showed that, his cover skills a little bit. Now he did get beat a couple of times, by Logan Thomas and some of these bigger tight ends, and that was a bigger issue. But I think if you're in coverage, you're going to get beat in some cases. That's just the nature of being in coverage. So I think if they have, I don't think they're ever going to keep a whole lot of linebackers on this roster because then they have 6 right now, and I think they ended up having like 4 or 5 on the initial 53. So they're not going to keep a whole lot of linebackers on this roster. If you can have someone like Khalid who's going to maybe develop into something a little bit more, you feel pretty good about that depth.
Absolutely. Now, Zach, actually, I had one more to ask you, but Cody Barton had some interesting comments where he said when he signed with Washington, it wasn't about going to get paid the most. It was about wearing the green dot. Jamin Davis and Cam Curl are 2 players on this defense that I think, are very capable of wearing the green dot. Do you think that Cody Barton will be that green dot wearer?
I think he's going to have the opportunity to earn it. I think it's you didn't see him do that a lot during OTAs. He's mostly working with the 2s because he is just learning the defense. So if you're gonna wear the green dot, it's kind of hard to wear the green dot when you don't really know the defense that well. Especially when you have guys like David Mayo and Jamie Davis who have been in this defense for a couple of years now, and they know it a little bit more fluently. But they drafted him because they signed him because he wore the green dot for the Seahawks last year. He was he was the guy, and he had the best year of his career when he wore the green dot. So I think he's going to have that opportunity when he knows the defense a little more fluently. And, I wrote a story about Cody and how he's really used flashcards to learn the defense a little bbit better and, trying to find his fit with where he fits on this team. And I think he does have like that thing. There's that Mike sort of role for the defense, and I think he could do it. Of course, he's going to have to compete against Jamin and David Mayo, like I said, who have more savvy with his defense. But I think he's got the talent to do it for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now to wrap this up, Zach, I only have a couple more questions. Do you have one?
Cut me off, man. I had a good one.
All right,
come on now,
rip it.
All right, so you talked about Khalid Hudson maybe earning that spot, or like maybe earning, or even Cody Barton earning the green dot. Left guard seems like the one position on the line out of the 5 that's kind of up in the air, and we have a little bit of question marks about that. Chris Paul, Sadiq Charles, or an outside free agent signing after maybe a player gets cut, or maybe someone that's already out on the market as well right now. Out of those 3 options, who do you think locks down that left guard spot?
Well, I think if they're going with an outside person to bring in to be the starting left guard, that means that's disastrous for them because that means that either Chris Paul or Sadiq Charles has worked out. I think they're going to give Sadiq the first run at it going out, and I think he's not maybe in a similar fashion to how Sam Howell's in it. Like they're going to give him every opportunity to to basically earn that spot for himself. Because remember, this guy was supposed to be the replacement of left tackle, and of course it never really worked out for a lot of reasons that really weren't in Sadiq's control, being hurt. And I mean, I remember his first start in 2020, I think it was like the first or second play, he ends up dislocating his knee and he's out for the entire year. Like you can't, like, it's just a freak thing that you cannot control. But I think he has the talent to do it. He's quick. He has good feet. He has good head placement. He has good hand placement. He has all these other things that make you think, okay, this can be a good left guard in the league. And plus, that quickness is really going to come in handy when you're going up against interior defensive tackles with the same skill set as a Jonathan Allen or a Deron Payne. You're able to hold that down a little bit and give maybe Sam a couple extra seconds to throw the ball. That's going to matter. So I would lean towards them saying they're going to give Sadiq every opportunity to earn it. But at the same time, I would be remiss with saying if I didn't say don't count out Chris Paul for this, because he has a lot of the same skills that Sadiq has. Maybe a little bit bigger than Sadiq in some areas. But I mean they gush over this guy like all the time. I mean it's very rare for a coach to unprompted go on and just praise somebody. And I mean Rivera does that all the time with Chris Paul. So Sadiq tentatively for now, but I really do think Chris Paul is nipping at the heels in some areas. And again, I'll say this too before we move on is, we learned basically nothing from offensive linemen this time of year. Like Sadiq looked good, in pass protection, and so did Chris Paul. But like, I mean, if you're not an offensive lineman, you're not looking good, in non-contact portions of off season. Like it's going to be tough for you once the pads come on. So well, I think that we'll get a real question on this once we get into the more the meat of training camp and they're able to show a little bit more in the run game. If you remember, they didn't run a single run play, it seems like, in OTAs. So just keep that in mind as you're watching left guard spot. When the pads come on, that's when you're going to get the best evaluator.
Absolutely. Now, Selby, to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you, but there have been some rumors floated around. Kareem Hunt, for example, there has been a rumor out there that he could possibly be signed by Washington, having that relationship with Eric Bieniemy, being a former running back, having that connection with him from Kansas City. Have you heard anything like that, and do you think that makes sense for Washington?
Well, I mean, obviously you hear like rumblings and reports, and I'm going to give the whole typical in-house media answer and be like, reports to reports. You don't know anything until it's finalized. But I will say, generally, I mean, obviously, I'll say Khalid Hudson again. Kareem Hunt is, he's a great talent, but just generally in terms of what I think about the running back room is it seems like in the same vein as if they brought in some outside person for left guard, it would be disastrous for them because that means that City Charles and Chris Paul hasn't worked out. It seems a little weird that they would bring in another running back, considering the fact that they feel pretty confident in Antonio Gibson, they feel confident in Chris Rodriguez, they feel confident in Brian Robinson, and they also feel pretty good about Jonathan Williams too. So that's 4 running backs on the roster that they feel confident in. And you have to remember, Bieniemy brought in, like, he advocated for Chris Rodriguez to be a project, see if he can develop into something. Now, he's probably not going to be as impactful as B-Rob or Gibson right out the gate because, 1, he'll be the 3rd running back on the depth chart, and 2, he's still got a lot to learn as a 6th-round pick. All those things are important. But it seems like they want to give him some time to maybe be a little bit more in this system, as he progresses through his career. So generally speaking, in terms of what I think about the running back room, I think it's low-key one of the more talented on the roster, just in my personal opinion, just because of what they have in B-Rod Gibson and then, Chris Rodriguez, whatever he ends up being, and then also Jonathan Williams, who whenever he gets out there, he seems to do pretty solidly enough. I mean, that Dallas game, he had a couple of really nice runs. That first Dallas game, it seems like I said, when he's out there, he has some pretty good abilities, and he knows how to read. He knows how to read blocks really well. So, like I said, obviously they can do. Ron Rivera can do whatever the hell he wants, but just to me, it would seem weird and a little maybe a little out of character to possibly bring in a fifth running back into a stable of backs that they already feel pretty good about.
Yeah, all this logic is not making sense here in Washington, Zach.
It's silly season, the people need things to talk about, so
That's
it's
very true.
Very, very
it's late June, early July time.
Absolutely. Hall, if you wouldn't mind turning on your headphone volume just a little bit. But my next question for you, Selby, last season when you looked at this football team, you saw a good defense with a strong physical running game with good pass catchers, but the identity was really like they weren't enforcers, so to speak. So what would you say the identity of this Washington Commanders team is going to be with Eric Bieniemy added in with that kind of attitude?
Tough, physical, with high standards. I think those are the three things that I would say, because you are to bring the toughness and the physicality, because I think this defensive line kind of embodies what the defense really wants. I think overall, like you want to get after people, you want to have this high standard and no margin for errors and all that other stuff. But I think this offense, I think, is starting to match that a little bit now, right? Because you have Bieniemy in there who is not taking anything less than what he thinks is acceptable, like at all. I mean, he's pretty much told people, like, hey, like if you can't do what I ask you, we will find somebody out there who will do it. Because remember, there are 90 guys out there, and a lot of them really want to make a roster spot or have a bigger role. So I think for what it's worth, they have really responded to that mentality. I mean, Jahan Dawson said he loves it. Terry is obviously love the fact that he's being pushed hard because he said he wanted it. Sam likes the fact that even though he's getting chewed out occasionally, for not doing something he's supposed to be doing, he loves the fact that he does, because the standard, right? What's expected of you, and I think coaches can never be the constant source of energy. Like a lot of times they want the players to pick that up, but sometimes they do need to be the start of that energy. And I think Bieniemy is kind of the source code for all of the toughness and the physicality that you're going to see in this offense a little bit more going forward.
I love to hear that. Last question I have for you, it could be brief, but what is your projection for the 53 for the secondary, just based on who's starting week 1 versus Arizona? If you want to just go corners, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally they keep more defensive backs on the field just because of the way they run their defense. So I would probably say I'm not going to put a label on any of these, because I think that might be in risky territory, especially with what they're going to be doing. But I just really think that Kendall Fuller and Benjamin St-Juste, like they're going to be some starting corners. I would also throw Emmanuel Forbes in there just because he looks exactly like what we expect him to be. He's the game changer. He's the ball hawk. And I would honestly say, like, I could see all three of them kind of rotating between outside and slots. I could see them, because they all have that a little bit of that ability. I mean, they put Emmanuel Forbes in the slot for a reason. I mean, he may play more there. He may not play more there because he's more of an outside guy. But and for what it's worth, I mean, during minicamp he was almost exclusively on the outside. But I could see all three of those kind of being intermingling and mixing, matching in terms of who's on slot, who's on the outside. Safety, obviously Cam Curl. I think you put him out there, and I think Derek Forrest. I think he's earned it. I think based on what we saw last year, he had the opportunity to take on bigger roles. He did that. He's got really good ball skills. He has really good feel for how to track the ball in the air. I mean, he's a stud. Like he's another one of those guys who has raised himself beyond the special teams kind of moniker, because that's what they originally drafted him to be, is more of a special teams guy. And he all of a sudden he's catching picks and getting game-sealing interceptions against the Jaguars and doing all this other great stuff. So I could see those five out there like week 1 against the Cardinals. But again, like, you have to remember the real evaluation time is we're still a month away from that, and whatever happens then, that'll tell you a lot about who's going to be out there.
Absolutely. And Selby, I can't thank you enough for your time, being able to talk about this bridge between minicamp and training camp and getting us geared up and ready for training camp because it can't get here soon enough. It's like a hurry up and wait sort of period. I can't thank you enough for your time as always, Selby. I hope you have a good and safe week, sir.
Oh, I always love coming on with you guys. Y'all have a great rest of the week.
I'll try.
Thank
to
you,
enjoy
sir.
my
Do the
vacation.
same.
I'm going to put my glasses back on now, Selby, if that's all right.
You are so loud, yes.
All right, thank you, Selby. Have a good night, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right,
Appreciate
everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Zach Selby. Always do appreciate Zach's time because he is hilarious.
Yeah, man.
Obviously, he's very good when he does right about. But obviously, this being vacation hall, before we get into fan questions to wrap up this episode, we're going to ask you, what's your favorite vacation, maybe memory or just vacation in general?
I would say when I went to Cancun, that was definitely like one of the top tier vacations just because it was like a 5-star resort, all inclusive. I mean, what else can you ask for? So that would be one. And I'm a big beach guy. I like just like hanging out on the beach, just being on the beach, stuff like that. So I'll probably say between Myrtle and like OBX, maybe more OBX just because like in my advanced age that I'm at now, I like a little bit more chill spots as opposed to like Myrtle Beach is like always packed with like ridiculous amounts of people. OBX more like kind of like that family, kind of like not really as packed type of place. So yeah, I would say Cancun and OBX are two of my favorite spots I've been to recently.
Yeah, it's really funny because Dave and I, Catherine's brother, were just talking today, and it was saying like, you know, I love the beach, obviously, but like everyone, it's so crowded this time of year. Where the lake where we're at, it's like it's still water. You could just go up. There is a beach front, and it's not crazy, man. You're just going there and having a good time. I do love it up here, and being on vacation. Probably it's crazy that I'm even doing an episode, but the fact is, I love doing this, and there's nothing else I'd rather be doing on vacation than hanging out with you, brother. And obviously Reed is not here tonight, but I love just talking ball. You know what I'm saying? But let's get on to our fan questions. And this one is from the Colonel. And so apologize if I'm not up to date on everything, but the Colonel's question, Hall, is PFF ranked only 2 Washington Commanders players in the top 100, Cameron Curl and Terry McLaurin. I'm a little surprised not to see Tress Way on the list. Who else do you guys think should arguably be on their top 100 list?
Yeah, I mean, punters always get disrespected. So, I mean, it's crazy whenever field goal kickers get highlighted as a top 100 player, but obviously they're a little more integral part of the game. Those are actually scoring points, and I guess you can kick like a game-winning field goal and whatnot. But, yeah, I mean, obviously Tress Way is like probably the best, if not second best punter in the league. So he's in his own category. But as far as like Terry and Cam Curl, first of all, glad Cam Curl's finally getting some recognition.
Seriously, man.
Yeah, because
isn't it always funny how Washington players get in the top 100 right before they get a contract? Like the same thing happened to Brandon Sheriff. We were kind of weirded out by that. We're like, oh, Brandon Sheriff was rated at the top 100. We're like, okay, but then like right as it led up.
Look,
yeah, it's weird. He deserves it.
Yeah, same thing happened with. I mean, I don't know if he was in the. Oh yeah, definitely. And then even look whenever Terry was trying to get his contract, like Terry never got any type of national recognition as like being like a tier 1 elite wide receiver. As soon as his contract time, well, he's the heart and soul of the team, and he's a top 10 receiver in the league, and blah 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 blah. So, I mean, he deserved the money. Kudos to the media pushing that narrative out there.
Yeah, and definitely in that Cam Curl deserves it. He deserves a spotlight. Yeah. He hasn't got
same thing with Cam Curl. I'm happy that
he definitely
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm glad he's getting that recognition, and obviously contract year. Obviously, he's being recognized as one of the top young safeties in the league, an up and coming star player, and he's probably going to get paid like it. And as far as Terry, first of all, they had him at 68, which is just crazy to me because a guy like A.J. Brown, who Terry has better, if not similar numbers to him, the only difference is look at the quarterbacks. Yeah, A.J. Brown has more touchdowns. Yeah, that's like the only difference. Terry has more yards. I think the receptions are fairly similar, like maybe a couple off. But look at the quarterbacks that A.J. Brown has been able to play with. Ryan Tannehill, which a lot of people hate on Ryan Tannehill, but he was playing like a top 10 quarterback at one point.
Of course he was. If you have Derrick Henry running behind you, everyone's scared to death.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at Jalen Hurts, where he goes to Philadelphia, Obviously, AJ Brown puts up some pretty good like monster numbers. But when a guy like Terry McLaurin, who has had no quarterback play, has been on damn near abysmal offenses for his whole career here in Washington, and he's still putting up similar or better numbers than the guys in front of him at the wide receiver position. To me, that sounds like he's better or not. He's as good, if not better, than those guys that have better quarterback play and better stuff around them. Now you're the tip of the spear on this one. I got to give you credit on that. You're the tip of the spear on the Terry McLaurin train.
Dude, I've been
So
saying that for so long, man.
I know, but no, I mean, I'm glad they got their recognition. I'm surprised Jonathan Allen or Deron Payne wasn't on that list, just because Jonathan Allen has been doing it consistently for a couple years now, and then Deron obviously just had that monster breakout year last year. But look, as long as my guys are getting some recognition, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm not going to be mad with Cam Curl and Terry McLaurin getting recognition because they absolutely deserve it. Both of them do. And there's a lot of guys on this team that do deserve it. But in the top 100, you're talking 11 and a half sacks. It has to go to Deron Payne. I mean, he has to be up in there. Being from a defensive tackle, you know, Aaron Donald kind of screwed everything up in everyone's, I guess, society's minds of what the tackles do. They typically are not getting double-digit sacks. It's unheard of. Yep. It's rare because you have to go through multiple bodies. The fact that he did that, I think he does deserve to be in the top 100. And on top of that, Jonathan Allen being who he is. But that being said, I think they're okay with it. Deron Payne just got paid. I'm sure he's not going to really care that much about being in the top 100. But I think those are the guys that you really want to look forward to and saying. But if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm very surprised Sam Howell didn't make it. You know? What he did against Dallas in Week 17. You should be on there, man. You should be 99. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, he's the only undefeated quarterback in the NFC East right now.
Exactly. See,
I'm just saying. Just saying.
You get it. You get it. That's why I like you, Hall. It's because you get me. All right, let's move to our fan questions in the Discord chat server. This is from our guy, Tim Towner. His question is, Hall, I saw an article on Rigo's Rag wondering if we might pursue a trade for either Budda Baker, Patrick Queen, or Trey Lance. While I'm not really in favor of these now, it makes one think, what is one position where we could at least afford to suffer an injury? And what is the one position with enough depth that we could afford to part with a player and get decent in return?
Good question. Hope you're catching up on your Urban Dictionary vocabulary there, Tim. I would say, I guess you got to go with, I would say left guard or maybe somewhere on the line, just because the question was like, who would you trade or what position would you make a trade for to get like a little bit better, right? Basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say left guard, just because obviously that's not the only question mark for the line, on offensive line going forward, but it's probably the biggest one. Obviously, Wiley's going to be locked in at right tackle. Sam Cosmi's going to be locked in at right guard. Looks like Nick Gates is going to be the starting center, depending on injury or something like that, or a crazy push from Strongberg or Tyler Larson. But more than likely, because they paid him the money, it's going to be Gates. And then you got, obviously, Mr. Steady, Mr. Consistent, as far as, like, being on the field, Charles Leno at left tackle. So, like we just talked about with Selby, obviously they're going to give every opportunity to the guys that are already here on the roster. But say injury happens, say they're not really seeing what they want to see out of these guys, I could definitely see them maybe I wouldn't say maybe pulling a trade off for a left guard, but I could definitely see them maybe hitting the veteran free agency line for a left guard.
Yeah, this is a really good question. I love Patrick Queen coming out of LSU. I thought that he was a perfect fit with the Baltimore Ravens. If there's one position I'll say that we cannot afford any injury to, I'll say it's left tackle. We don't even feel good with what is behind Charles Leno. Right now, we don't know who could play there. Obviously, Cornelius Lucas did well at times to come in. But we don't know, can Cornelius Lucas play for half a season and start every single game and be productive and doing well enough to protect Sam Howell's blind side, him being a second-year quarterback? So if I feel like if it's any position, it's the left tackle spot. Like you talked about, Charles Leno, Mr. Consistency, playing all 17 games, the most snaps anybody on the team last season. Obviously, he is very important to all of this. And if he were to come out, that's bad news bears for the rest of the season, and especially for Sam Howell, which is not a good thing to be talking about.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, now this next question in Discord chat from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! Thank you, Scott.
Oi.
Gents, what's more likely, 10 wins and a playoff berth, or back in on a wild card spot? What's more likely?
I'd say back in on a wild card spot just because I mean, look, obviously it comes down to if you look at the past couple of years, what has it been? 8 wins and like 6, 7 wins, whatever it might have been. But that's been with bottom tier quarterback play for the most part. Like here and there, you got like your little spurts of average quarterback play. But I think that if Sam Howell, obviously he's gonna have his ups and downs, but if he can just be average, like logic, you would say, oh, average quarterback play would equal more wins for this team because the roster around them is pretty good, if not above average, and the defense, if they don't take a step back and play to the level we all know they can, that's a top 5 to 6 unit right there. So you would saying, okay, Sam Howell plays average. This team should have 9, maybe 10 wins. But it's the NFL. Obviously, everything never goes exactly how you think it's going to be. Nothing goes, even though people think it's scripted. Nothing ever follows the script like it's supposed to. So just based on the history, and we haven't had 10 wins since 2012. It's been 11 years at the start of this season. I would say more likely wild card, but I would also say if you get average quarterback play with everyone else doing their part and playing up to like they did last year or better, I could definitely see 10 wins. But like I said, history would say they get the 7th seed, a wild card spot, and you can still win a playoff game that way too as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I apologize for the banging. That was Cash banging on the glass with a tennis ball trying to get my attention. But like to your point, there's an old saying like in the military means where no plan survives past first contact with the enemy. To your point, something always goes awry. It never goes perfectly the way you say it will. Mm-hmm. And you're right about that. But that being said, for a while now, I've said that Eric Bieniemy was more valuable to this organization than any draft pick in this draft class. And I wholeheartedly believe that because that mindset being implemented, that next man up mentality is what you can talk about it all day that's what every guy is saying. Like that's what we should be doing. But there's a difference between feeling it and saying it. And a lot of the times, it's just said. It's not truly felt. And I feel like Eric Bieniemy being added here kind of gives us that actual mindset, that backing, that confidence of a team. And so if I'm going to say anything, I would say what's more likely, I would say 10 wins and a playoff berth. As much as we want to talk about this football team having these weaknesses here, I find it hard to believe that with a very spirited leader, with a young guy, in Sam Howell, if they were to catch fire, I don't think they can turn it off. And like we saw this in 2012. This is typically how the things go. You know, we don't have high expectations. All of a sudden they catch fire and everyone's like, whoa, what was that? And then it's gone. I think this is a different situation. This isn't just lucky. This is multi-tectorial. There's multiple factors coming into this, being the great defense. Then I know that there are weaknesses along the offensive line and tight end, but there's great skill positions here. There's a great fundamental structure to this team, and if they could catch fire, if there's a little bit of gasoline on the road, dude, they're going to go a long ways. And so I know I'm probably being Homer Simpson here, and I'm all for it. I'm going to get it tattooed on me one day.
No.
But I'll say 10 win a playoff berth.
Hey, but to your point about like expectations and whatnot, like, so I was watching NFL Live like earlier before like we got on and everything, and they just randomly talking about Washington, which like randomly ever happened. So I was like, oh, let me pay attention really quick. And basically Mina Kimes, like paraphrasing, was like, if you look at the roster, especially on offense, obviously you got the skill positions. The running back position is above average or good or above average. And if the tight ends if you can get anything out of the tight end, it's a bonus compared to last year. And then she talked about the defense, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But she basically said, as it goes to like with Sam Howell in the quarterback position, like basically they were saying like if we would have drafted one of these first round guys, there'd be a whole different kind of view at Washington. It was like, oh, these guys are contenders because they drafted a first round pick and the first round pick. But because Sam Howell's a 5th round pick, it's kind of like, well, the roster's good, but they're starting a 5th rounder. So I think, like you said, to your point, if he can just be consistently average, and he'll be ups and downs, but if he can just stay steady and average, the expectations for this team will, I think, raise tenfold.
Yeah. Now, just imagine this, right? I know everyone keeps saying that Sam Howell is a fifth rounder, and obviously that reality is reality. But why was Sam Howell moved to a fifth rounder, right? The season before that, he was projected as a first round pick, a top 10 pick, you could say. The funny thing is that all of his weapons went away and he looked kind of worse, right? Well, if you look about it and from a macro scale, he's being taken from a situation where all of the talent was depleted away from him, and that's when his stock dropped. Now being added to Washington with a top 10 defense, with very capable playmakers on the outside, and with a capable play caller at his behind, being energetic, helping him out, coming from a system like Kansas City, a championship winning team, you're almost giving those weapons back to him that he had his sophomore year. And so you could talk about him not being a first-round pick or not, but the fact is he was projected when he had those weapons. Now look at the weapons he has here, and let's be honest here. They're very good weapons. And so it's not crazy to think that Sam Howell could be productive in this offense, but rule number one, he's got to stay healthy, man. Can we please play an entire season?
Yeah.
That's the big question.
Nah, you're right with that. I mean, I think we've averaged like 3 quarterbacks a year for the past like 4 or 5 years at this point, which – it's just crazy to even think about. But, yeah, if you can stay healthy, I'm not going to say sky's the limit, but honestly, if he stays healthy, plays average, and elevates the offense just a smidge with Eric Bieniemy, the sky is the limit.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Now, this last question from Twitter. This is from our guy, Deuce Alicious. Appreciate it, sir. He asks, I think Davis takes a big step at linebacker and gets a Pro Bowl nod. What do you guys think? Is that a stretch? 1. 2, is that possible? 3, Deuce is out of his mind. Davis is getting cut during camp. 4, other.
That's funny. What was the B option again?
Possible.
Possible Pro Bowl. Yeah, I'll go with B just because obviously he's injured right now and we don't know what he's going to look like after the injury or how quick he'll get back to 100% post-injury and once he gets to training camp and all that stuff. So I would say, and I mean, if you look around the NFC, there's some pretty good linebackers there. So I feel like it'd be semi-tough to get into the Pro Bowl just because you got to play like at a top-tier level. And with this defense, I mean, you got the 4 guys in front of you. If they're playing to their potential, it's going to make Davis's job a lot easier because those guys are up front eating up blocks. He's going to be able to scrape to the hole or make a free run to the hole or sideline to sideline. But I just think that it's hard to make Pro Bowls in the NFL, man. But I will go with option B. Like the potential is there, but can you put it all together and be consistent?
I definitely think it's possible, Deuce. I mean, you say it's hard to get in a Pro Bowl, but Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowler last season.
Well, now he was like a 5th option after everybody declined it and was injured.
That could happen with Jamin.
I mean, I guess. I'm talking about when I say make the Pro Bowl, I mean like you got voted in. You weren't just like,
I got you.
I mean, if this guy doesn't want to do it, I guess you can come.
It's definitely possible for Jamin. And I do wonder if him not wearing the green dot frees him up to be that guy, that moving in space and to be able to go there. But it's hard for me to kind of, because of what's put on his plate. In this defense, the linebackers are asked to do a lot, and that's not just coming up in run fits. They're asked to cover a lot of ground, cover a lot of guys. And typically in the NFL, when you're going against these all-stars in talent, it's hard to be productive in that sense. Somebody like Fred Warner, who's a freak of nature, is very good in that sense. So with Jamin, I'm not sure if he's going to be put in the position to be able to excel in the stats, the numbers, the playmaking-wise in order to vault himself into that Pro Bowl level. But I do think that he is going to solidify himself this year as one of the better defenders on this football team and as an up-and-coming linebacker that people are going to be looking at in free agency and saying he hasn't even hit his stride yet, and he has gotten more and more productive every single year. These people in Washington don't know a good player when they see one. Let's go get Jamin, and he's pretty cheap. Whereas with people here were saying, cut Jamin, he sucks, kind of thing. But I do think that Jamin is more than capable of winning a Pro Bowl or getting to the Pro Bowl. I'm more invested in winning a playoff game. That's all I care about. Honestly, we could cry all day long about none of our guys getting Pro Bowl nods or being all pro. I just want to win a playoff game at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If we can do that, I'm a happy man.
You know what also will help you get those Pro Bowl votes and the All Pro nods? Like obviously the stats, the numbers, the playmaking abilities that you make on the field, but being relevant, winning games, being
Yeah.
talked about in the national media, getting your name out there, getting your highlights put out there on NFL Live, ESPN, stuff like that, because you're winning games and you're relevant. That also goes a long way in helping you as well. So I think that'll be also a little bit of part of it as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now to wrap this up whole, I only have a couple more. Not a couple more questions, but I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit with like Hard Knocks and everything like that. Do you think it's going to happen?
Um, I think that if they go with the July 8th date that Roger Goodell sent out to the NFL owners to like keep that day open for the possible vote of the sale of the team, I think that if it goes down to the 8th and then training camp starts the 27th, and I think Hard Knocks is sometime in August when it starts, but I think that I guess they filmed from the beginning as well. But anyway, I think that is definitely a possibility just because the whole ownership thing and you can spotlight that. Obviously, we got the storylines with like Chase Young coming back, Eric Bieniemy being here as well. There's some interesting players on the team as well, like a guy like Cam Curl, who obviously doesn't get the big national recognition, but is starting to. He's a guy that could be on the storyline, and obviously the fan base and everyone being excited that Dan Snyder is selling and just the excitement around the training camp. It is going to be a packed house probably. I think it would be good for HBO and Hard Knocks and good for us. I just think that push come to shove, I don't know why they said they're asking the Lions to do it again. That'd be the worst thing ever. But
They're
I
not.
think push. I know. I think push come to shove, they probably make the Jets do it just because Aaron Rodgers is there. It's New York. It's the biggest media, whatever you call it in the world. But if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say it's about a 49% chance it happens. I would love that for it to happen. I wish it would, but I just think the NFL is going to go with a team like the Jets because of Aaron Rodgers and the star power that he brings.
I can guarantee you I will not even watch Hard Knocks. I just want Hard Knocks here for our guys to get that national recognition. Just for them to get normal people across America to see how hard these guys are working and how the national media looks at them so negatively, even though what's happening is not anything to do to their fault. They're just trying to progress and pull this team better, but it seems like all the extra stuff is pulling them back. And a spot like Hard Knocks is a perfect situation for that. And first and foremost, it's a foregone conclusion, in my opinion. Hard Knocks is coming here. It's 99%. Last year, they announced it in like March or something like that.
Yeah.
Why do you think they're waiting until August? What else is being announced in August? Let's put 2 and 2 to 2 plus 2 equals 4, my guys. And let's come to that conclusion and say they're putting up the medal stands out there. Most likely, we're getting Hard Knocks. And that's why they are kind of pushing all this other news out. They want it to be big news when it happens. And so I don't want to spoil anything because not that many people watch this. So it's not like we're like, ruining the surprise or anything. But you know what I mean?
Breaking news.
But I'm just saying putting 2 and 2 together, it would be ridiculous for the NFL to follow Aaron Rodgers to New York. It really would be. The guy does not need any more attention. I think we are all just kind of over Aaron Rodgers after the multiple retirements, Jeopardy, then the acid trip up in the mountains, and then, am I going to sign? Am I going to go to New York or not? Just tired of Aaron Rodgers, man. There's better storylines, and you have the joint practices with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. He just signed his big deal. That's not a huge storyline in itself for Hard Knocks to be able to highlight joint practices with the Ravens. I think that's perfect. I think it's a foregone conclusion. I think they're coming here, and I'm really, really excited for it. I told you, I'm not even worried about watching it. I just think that Ron Rivera, Jason Wright, the players, everyone down, they've been working so hard, and they don't get the admiration, they don't get the respect that they should for how hard they've been working under the circumstances. And going on Hard Knocks is a situation where they could actually get that admiration, that praise from the national people once they actually see it, because the local people are having a problem with separating the two. From Dan Snyder, from the new organization. They're having a very hard time doing that, and Hard Knocks would be a great way to show everyone, especially local people, you screwed up big time this entire time. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm on vacation. I'm enjoying myself. I had a great time tonight. I really do appreciate all of you who've made it this far. You are a freaking champion. Hall, as always, man, Mr. Consistent. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you. You're on vacation. You still taking the time out to do the episode. So kudos to you.
Kane called me today. Oh, man.
Did he really?
Yeah, he called
Why?
me about a PO I took out last week. He goes, man, I shouldn't even be answering this right now.
Yeah, I would have just been like, nope, no service. Sorry, didn't see it.
I was on top of a mountain chasing cash around. I was like so hot, just frustrated. It's like, what, Kane? No, but it has been honestly just a freaking blast here. It's been a great time, and I really am appreciating and enjoying it. Trying to soak it all in, trying not to let the week go by too fast, because go back to work on Monday next week. I'm kind of waiting on that a little bit. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I'm sorry to bore you guys to death. I hope my audio wasn't too crazy. If there was a change in any sort of the flow of the video or audio, it's because I didn't hardwire the network connection in. I don't have my router. I've tried searching this entire vacation house to find the router so I could hardwire my connection in, and I literally cannot find it anywhere. So I'm going to go looking. Hopefully before Thursday I'll be able to find that. But thank you, everybody, for making it this far. I really do appreciate you guys. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I am Hull.
And I'm Reed. All right, buddy. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a great, safe week. Washington football.
And I'm former Jet Scout Daniel Kelly.
Washington football. Whee! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.